But okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of the Kids from It podcast. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined as always by Kayla, Tequila Mockingbird 13, and special guest, my very own mother. Yes, I have one, Denise Whitehead. We are very happy to have you on the show, Mom. Thanks for joining us.
We're so thrilled to have you on the show. We've talked so many times about having parents. Like, this is huge for us.
This is great for me too. Yeah, this is like therapy.
This
it's
is
brave of you too. I mean, it's just cool.
For anyone doing this, honestly, it really is. This is the other member of the podcast. Another one. This is Wolfie. He joins every show, every chance he can. He's a big baby. Whenever I'm doing Zoom calls or podcasts or anything, he always comes in here and starts yelling. Yeah. He like stands by me and yells, so I have to pick him up and placate him. Otherwise, he'll ruin the show. He has a lot of thoughts. Wolfie has things he needs to share with the world.
Okay.
He's our mascot.
Yeah.
All right. Bring it on, Wolfie. Bring it on. Yeah.
All right. So today we're going to do a interview with Mom talking about her journey through independent fundamentalism and like her entry, her experience, and her exit from the cult, just as we did. I was thinking that this is going to be really fun for me because as I was looking through the question, half of them I know the answers to, and half of them I do not. And so I'm going to be learning just along with everybody else. So you ready for this, Mom?
I guess.
Before we start, I want to ask, but more complain that, so Kayla, Mom and Dad live in California and they live down in San Diego. And it is gorgeous out there. Every time I go, I never want to leave. So I'm assuming you guys aren't experiencing the, hell on earth winter that we're going through in the rest of the country. Am I right, Mom?
You are right. You are correct. However, with the fires in Los Angeles, we're about 2.5 hours away from Los Angeles. We are experiencing extreme high winds coming from I guess it's Santa Barbara area. So it's a little cool. Yeah, so it's different. I gotta wear a jacket, blah blah blah, but nothing like the ice and the snow. Completely different, but still, when you're used to having nice weather, like almost year round, and this cold spurt, it's like it throws your groove off, if you will. Yeah.
Realized how incredibly insensitive I sound calling this hell on earth when in Los Angeles it's literally hell on earth. I just realized, that probably came out the wrong way. But yeah. Pretty.
I have a question just really quick. Is your area are you seeing like a ton of people from the LA area? Like in where did you say San
Diego.
Thank you. I don't know. I couldn't think of that. The San Diego area. I mean, are people just like flooding in? I'm just wondering where everyone's going right now.
Well, I haven't seen anything like that. No, I haven't. I would assume that's a good question, but I would assume people they got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I just asked because I remember when Helene hit here, people were leaving and trying, going to Charlotte and Raleigh. And I remember just like hotels and stuff like that being really inundated. I was just wondering if that happened or was happening yet out there. Not to wish it on you or anything. But I'm really glad that you brought up the fire as well, because we wanted to shout out Sam and his podcast that he's been on with us before. He's amazing. He's out there pretty close. So shout out to him. Hope he's okay.
Yeah, it's there's nowhere safe to live in the United States. There's nowhere on Earth, honestly. It's a cooling planet, and there's seismic activity all over the place. I don't like the Midwest all that much because I hate winter. I'm too old for it. I want to be done. I could go without seeing another winter the rest of my life. I want snow exactly one day out of the year, Christmas Day. Other than that, I don't want to see it. But if you move south, you get hurricanes, or if you move, anywhere in the Midwest, you get tornadoes. You move out west, you get mudslides and earthquakes and wildfires. So God
Yeah.
will get you one way or the other. He will find a way to like put you in harm's way. But I saw a comment from Bob Holmes who says, "Welcome out of fundydom, all who found the exit and dared to walk through." We appreciate that, Bob. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that was a cool comment, Bob. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Bob, good old Bob. I don't know him,
yeah.
but it sounds like a good dude. But all right, so we're going to talk about this journey here. And I was telling them at the beginning, actually, I'm losing track. I can't remember if I said it already or not. But I don't know the answers to the back end of this questions, but I know the answer to the front. And so we'll have Kayla, if you will, start off with our questions here for I'm going to call you Mom. It sounds unprofessional, but I'm not going to call you Denise. So it's like, it's our show. We can do whatever we want, but let's go.
I'm going to call you, I'll call you Miss Denise instead of your full name. But I want to, no one asked for this, but I just want to tell everyone that Miss Denise was my favorite person when I was a kid. So sweet. And you were dressing every time you showed up to church, girl. You looked so good. I remember being very young and being like, I'm gonna make a skirt look that good. I mean, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but anyway.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I want to ask a personal question before I get into our questions.
Sure.
We've talked a lot on the podcast, about where and when we got started in Maranatha. Do you, you guys were there in the old building? Do you remember about when me and my sister started? And do you remember if we were like bus kids or were we at school first? And you might not remember this. That's okay. I remember, weren't you working in the schools at that time? Or
correct. I was.
Yeah, we'll circle back to that, but
I was working in the school at that time, but I don't remember, 100% if you were like bus kids, or
I don't either.
No,
I don't know that anybody well. I'm gonna ask everybody until I figure it out.
You mean like riding the bus? What do you mean?
I can't. My sister and I can't remember how we first got started, because we started at Maranatha, like Courtney and I, before our whole family did, and it was maybe as students, but we were pretty sure we were picked up on the bus ministry. So I was just trying to confirm that before I really tooted about it, but we'll circle back to that.
Funny thing is, it could have been both. Like simultaneously,
it
really could have been. Yeah, I never really thought about that.
I mean, that feels a little bit more right.
Bus. Yeah, it could have been both.
Yeah. Okay, so digging into our real questions, we are circling way back here, back to the Maranatha days. But how did you first get involved in the Independent Fundamental Baptist movement?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, that wasn't being a part of that movement wasn't anything that we sought out to do intentionally. It just kind of happened to me and my husband. We were in Germany at the time. We were in Kaiserslautern, Germany, and a co-worker of my husband, kept inviting him to come to church. We, because they always had like revivals, if you will. And so this coworker would always ask my husband and say, "Hey, can you come to church? And we got this revival. We have this great speaker. His name is Bobby Brown, and you guys should come and go." And so he had asked my husband several times to come to the church, but we never did. But on this last time that he asked my husband came home and said, "Oh, Pat Logan." Well, he passed away, so I should say the late Pat Logan. He asked me to come to church, and instantly I said, "I don't want to go. I don't want to be a part of that. I just don't want to go," because me and my husband and I, we were not in church. We were not church-going people. We just kind of we were just living life. And I didn't think that was a bad thing. We were raising our kids, doing life. And so I said, okay, since, he asked, let's just go, and we'll go this one time and we won't go anymore. But it turned out opposite. And so we went, and that night that we went, I I listened to the message, and it was talking about you know, Jesus died for you, Jesus loves you, and when I heard that message, it was like something clicked inside of me, in my head and in my heart. It felt like the truth, because when you hear the truth, it makes sense to you. It's like there's a certain ring to the truth that's like, that's true. I can't prove it right now, but that's true.
I can feel it.
I can feel it. And when I heard that, it was like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for all my life. Because growing up as a young girl and as a teenager, or preteen, teenager, I always had a sense in my being, in my heart, that I knew that there was a God. I always felt that deep, 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 deep. And no one ever talk to me and say, well, Denise, you got to believe this is, you got to believe A, B, and C, D, whatever. No one ever did that to me. And when I heard that message, it was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I've been looking for all my life. And then when the pastor finished preaching, he gave the invitation, and he said, if you want to know for sure that if you would die today, you would go to heaven and be with Jesus. And you guys have heard this story before, and I was like, yes, I want that. This is what I want. And I didn't know what my husband was going to do. I didn't know how that was going to affect the rest of my family, but I just knew that's what I needed at that time. So I went forward and I went back. They took me in this room in the back, and they showed me from the Bible, Romans Road, about I knew that you're a sinner, and by me being a sinner, Jesus had to die for our sins, and he paid the sin debt, and I accepted that, and I believed that, and I asked Christ to forgive me for my sins. And at the same time, I wasn't aware that my husband was accepting Christ as well. So we both accepted Christ on the same night. Yeah, it was a Wednesday night.
Wow.
It was 1990. 2019, if you will. I'm sorry. Let me back up. It was 1990. We were in Germany, and that's what happened. And so after that, I was like, oh my God, what's next? What's going to happen next? And then so the pastor was telling us that after you give your life to Christ, the next step of obedience is being baptized through immersion, not sprinkling of water.
Not sprinkling. Nope, we don't do sprinkling here.
You gotta get all the way in.
We are called Baptists for a reason.
Exactly.
Oh, Mom left the show. Oh no, where did she?
I have a little. I was just gonna say, fun fact. In 1990, I was also in Germany, being born. So that's really cute of all of us that we were.
One was born to Christ and one was born to Earth. Look at that.
Dang, that was a good one, TJ.
I got them. That's what they pay me the big bucks for, folks. That's why.
Yeah. So I automatically.
Where did she go?
Say what, TJ?
It says, where did she go? The people were ripping it, Mom. You had folks on the edge of their seats. They wanted to know more.
You popped up so fast.
Oh, it's Essence. Why is your username Jessica? You know what? Hold on.
That's so weird.
Yeah, that's very strange. Yeah.
I'm so happy you're here.
But so after that, the pastor was saying that you need to get baptized, through immersion and all that. That's the next step of obedience, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I will do this. I did it. Then Tony was baptized. My husband, Tony, he was baptized as well. And then that's when a lot of the learning started to take place. They, the church had set up where we could learn. We were called disciples, and we were learning about the Bible and why we do what we do and why we don't do what we do and all kinds of things like that, which I thought was interesting because it was like a foundation to live, how to live. And so, in Germany, it was great. I mean, when I walked in that church the first time, I saw so many races of people, races, and I had never seen anything like that. And growing up as a country girl, my mom would send us to church from time to time, but it was all one race.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that we had white, we had black, we had Asian, we had Hispanic, we had so many people, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. The independent movement in Germany, in my experience, was completely different than the independent movement in the States. And the pastor in Germany, his name, he's passed away now. His name was Roy Grisby. And he said, when you get back to the States, when you guys PCS back to the States, when you move back to the States, the church is going to be different. And boy, was he right.
Was he right? Yeah.
It was different. It was different. Yeah.
So Maranatha was your first church back in the States, or how did
Maranatha
you?
Yes.
Okay.
Maranatha was the first church back in the States.
For those
and
who
just
don't
for
know,
context
Maranatha,
for our listeners, I was about to say, sorry,
Go ahead.
TJ. I think we were saying the same thing. Just for context for our listeners, I'm gonna say, you guys were the only African American family that I remember at Maranatha at all.
Yes.
It was entirely white.
That was very hard for us, but we put our feelings to the side and say, okay, well, this is where God wants us to be. This is where we're going to bring our children up in the church and learn and grow and all that comes with it. And anything negative that we saw, we just I think we talked about it between my husband and I, and we were trying to make changes, positive change, but the bottom line, we felt that it just wasn't working.
Yeah, well, I don't know when. Kayla, it may have been after or before you got there, but there was another family in Germany, the Pride family. We went to church with them in Rhineland Baptist Church.
Okay, yeah. No, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, they were there for a short time before they went to a different church, so I thought maybe I missed the window. But but then there like intermittently another black family would show up, but it was pretty rare. It was not common. And what Mom was saying there, if I can say my perspective on it, is whenever we ran across issues of bigotry or racism or sexism or whatever, for years, I mean, I feel like for like 15 years, I thought this is not a product of the religion itself. Yes. This is just this particular church or this particular community. And it wasn't until like years ago, I was like, oh no, this is rampant. This is like pretty much everywhere you go. I remember a lot about Rhineland Baptist Church. I remember Pastor Grigsby, Pastor Woody and all that. Yes. And I remember liking them I mean, that's all I knew. So I had nothing to compare it to versus, you guys growing up in the States and everything like that. Yeah. I wanted to touch on a few things you mentioned here. The first, I forgot it was in Kaiserslautern, Germany. And that's such a cool name for a city.
I know,
that is a cool name, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought about it. I haven't thought about it in years. And I thought, Kaiserslautern, like Kaiser means like king, I know. And Slautern, I was like, does this mean king killer? I was like, that's a cool name for a city. It's not. It's not. Lawton means river. So it's like King's River or something, which is not nearly as cool. But I'm going to pretend it's King Killer Germany. That's a really cool name. I like that. And I wrote down Pastor Grigsby. I'm not sure why I wrote his name down, but I remember liking him a lot. The Romans Road you brought up, haven't heard that in a long time. The Romans Road. That, for those of you wondering what she was talking about, the Romans Road, basically there's this it's like a step-by-step guide to get the
Bible verses, right?
Yeah, to get the sinner's prayer.
Bible verses,
yeah. I can't remember it. I think Romans 3:23 is in there, maybe Romans 5:8, but it's like
Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And that was easy for me because I knew I knew I had sinned, and nothing that I could do could fix it. Because in my belief, Jesus came. That's why Jesus had to come, because of our sin. Yeah, and what Romans
10:13 probably. Romans 10:13 is in there, is my guess. I can look up the Romans Road and see what they are, what the actual verses are. Let's see. It's here, but it's not. What are you laughing at, Kayla? What's so funny?
Just you being you, even with your mom here. I just love it.
What? I'll listen. What else is he gonna be?
I love it. I know. It's my favorite thing.
That's great. Okay, here we go. Let's pull up the Romans Road for all the people who are dying to know, I'm sure.
Okay, Romans 10:13 says, "For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved."
Yeah. So it starts with what you said, Mom, at Romans 3:23. Yep. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And Romans 5:8, but God demonstrated his love toward us that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. 6:23, forgot that one. For the wages of sin is death.
Yeah.
But the gracious gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ our Lord. And Romans 8:1, therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. That's a weird verse to say. And Romans 10:9, if you confess with your...
I'm sorry, let me read it. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved.
Yeah, Mom, you're also using your own Bible. Are you reading it from...
Probably the King James version.
Yeah, I was because I realized it was slightly different. They're using an apostate version on this website. So yeah, the Romans Road. That's a handy little tool to walk people through the sinner's prayer and everything. And I wrote down too that Mom grew up country. Kayla, Dad would always make fun of Mom for growing up in the sticks. He does it all the time. I'm sure he does it to this day. Yeah. Like he's not from Georgia himself.
I know,
right? But yeah, that is
country girl too.
Hey,
I love
the
country.
best. We're the best.
Oh boy. I make fun of the South a lot. I do it all the time. You both know this, and I was born in the South, so I'm allowed to. So I can. It's perfectly fine, right? Yeah, no one can stop me from that. Yeah. So Mom, what'd you say, Kayla?
I said you totally go here.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that, also I wanted to mention, wow, Mom, you're like born for this. Kayla, I don't know, like we've had plenty of people come on here.
I was just thinking that.
I don't think any of them.
You're natural.
Yes, like I don't think any of them just came with like a 5-minute exposition ready to go. That was incredible, and it was so calm and natural. I was like, yeah, we do this a lot. And
I'm nervous right now. We've only done like 3 lives. I'm over here like, be cool, and you're just killing it. You're killing it.
Thank you. I'll take it.
That was incredible. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. I should not be surprised at all.
I was just thinking like how very we talk about TJ's voice and how good he is at leading us like all the time, and it just makes it's reminding me how much sense it makes.
He's taken it a step further, more than a step further. I mean, he's just blown my mind, and
stop it, you two, stop it. I keep going. No, it's just it's great. All right. So what I wanted to get to, Mom, well, you kind of touched on it a little bit with the lack of diversity in this movement that you saw, which I imagine you were warned about it by Pastor Grigsby, and then you saw it at Maranatha, and you saw it continue, throughout the years. But I was curious about, were there other customs and rules that are also about this? Like, I didn't know that it was a Wednesday night first. That's very funny. There was a Wednesday night of all things, and that you and Dad accepted Christ separately. You didn't know. That's kind of wild. That I did not see that coming. I thought that.
What I have a comment here, maybe, but wasn't that a kind of normal thing in the churches? If you came forward at altar call to immediately have someone on you and separate the situation? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean that you both came forward and did it like that. I didn't know that happened.
The fact that we went for the same night, and got saved the same night. That's way unheard of.
Yeah, that's not
women that I met in my journey, in the fundamentalist movement, it's like, oh, you're so lucky, you're so blessed. My husband is not saved, and and the Bible talks about being unequally yoked, because we not having the same goal, the same path. One is saved, one is not saved, and it's hard to bring the two together. So when we made that decision, at the same time, we were both. It was a great thing. It was a good thing.
Yeah,
I'll just say that.
I wanted to mention that you did see this a lot, where people, what I would hear a lot, the unequally yoked thing. They talked about this all the time. They said that if you were a believer, you are not to date a non-believer. Yes. You are certainly not to marry one.
It's still something that lingers in my mind all the time. Like, I'll meet Christians that I get along with all the time, and in the back of my head, I'm like, they cannot date me because I'm not yoked. I'm not the right yoke for them. I can't get it out of my head. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, guys.
No, it's because you guys, I'm sure, heard this a lot. I love talking about missionaries or evangelists or preachers that just showed up and gave their testimonies, because I swear half of them went just like this. So I started going to church when I was 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, and I wasn't a believer at all, but I met this girl there and she was a believer. And so I started dating her, and she said, well, listen, if you want to continue dating me, you really need to get saved. And he says, I didn't want to do it, but we kept dating. She talked me into it. I thought, wait a minute, why was she dating you? I hear all the time that we're not supposed to be unequally yoked, but you are clearly saying, I heard this all the time with these folks, that you guys are not taking your own advice here. Yeah. But were there, outside of that, with the unequally yoked thing, I swear I'll get to my question, I swear I will. But the unequally yoked thing that Kayla mentioned, that's kind of wild to even most Christians. I feel like most Christians don't care all that much. Like your general standard garden variety Christian, that like a nominal Christian or whatever, they don't even know that verse exists. It's the people who are really deep into it. Because when you tell folks, it's like I had to break up with several people over the years because they said, well, I can't date you because of your lack of belief or whatever. And I tell this to normies, and they just look at me like I have 5 heads. Like, what do you mean they broke up with you because you don't have the right religion? No, it is a big deal. This is a huge deal to these folks. So I can't stress enough how important that is. But Mom, were there other red flags? I love asking this question of things where you just saw, you're like, oh, so we can't go to movie theaters, huh? That's interesting. Like
That's weird.
Like any red flags that popped up to you, especially since, unlike Kayla and I, you spent your entire childhood and a good chunk of your adulthood not in this at all. So
pretty much normal.
We hopped in.
What was that like?
You're right, I know. And we hopped in later than a lot of other folks. A lot of other folks are born into this. We weren't born into it, but like from your perspective, a lot of stuff you would have been like, oh, okay, I can see that, but a whole bunch you must have said, what is going on? Can you give me examples of that?
I did have those thoughts and feelings. It's like, what is going on? Why? What is this? I felt like, someone was trying to, I felt like the church, in a sense, was trying to control my home.
Oh, how so?
Well, I mean, it's like, well, you can't go to the movies. You shouldn't wear this, or you shouldn't dress like this, or it's just certain things
I don't want to speak for my mom or anything, but that's something that I've heard when my mom and my parents and I talk about all the time, or when I ask questions, it's that similar answer, is that it encroached really slowly, and then it was like, oh, the church is in charge of our house.
And then I'm thinking in my head, I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, God has our best interest at heart. And I think I finally settled it in my mind, is that the church, overstepped. The way that they approach certain things, they overstepped boundaries in the home. And because when I gave my life to Christ, I went all in. I went all in, because I looked at it this way. I was, when I wasn't a Christian, I was doing whatever non-Christians do, if you will. And then when I became
Living, baby.
yeah. And then when I became a Christian, I wanted to do the right thing and live how God wants me to live and raise our kids the best that we can in the way that will bring honor and glory to Him, and just raise them up so they can be good, productive citizen in the world. But I just, bottom line up front, I just said that the church they just overstepped in certain areas in our lives, and I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like the way that it was affecting my kids, and even in the other kids in the school and in the environment, but I didn't know how to fix it. I thought, I was doing it right, what was right. I knew in a sense I was doing what was right, but it was just something I couldn't put my finger on that to make it stop.
Well, Mom, I appreciate that, but I'm afraid that won't be enough. I am going to need some examples. Like, what is an example of something? I asked, like,
well, can I ask her some questions about some examples that I can think of, or maybe stuff that we've talked about? Like, I remember when we talked before about the extreme doomsday, like, preaching, and being a lot at Maranatha. Do you remember anything like that? Or was that, I know we were like post 9/11 at this time, and so it was like a different political environment too, where was that not noticed if it was happening? Just anything like that? Political stuff. I don't know if I asked that clearly. I'm so sorry.
I just realized,
was there a lot of doomsday preaching? Like, was it a constant thing? Do you remember anything like that?
Doomsday preaching, as far as like
eschatology, like the last days. I just realized Kayla's kind of a Johnny come lately here, because she said, like, because she would have first been aware of this like around the post 9/11 era. It was like that before 9/11. Like they would always talk about the last days, the end of the last days. I mean, we had it drilled into our head that the final calendar in the Bible was the creation of the state of Israel. And like, since that happened, it's good to go. This was before we joined, but there was that book, 88 Reasons Christ Will Return, in 1988. But so I'll ask, since Kayla brought it up, how did you feel about that? Because I have to admit, I loved this.
That's what I got to tell you.
Yeah, I loved it.
Did it make you feel weird, or was it like whatever?
No, it was that because I believed it, right? It's like the world is coming to an end.
Yes.
We need to warn people. And I think Kai and I talked with this on one episode, is that if you genuinely believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that your neighbor is going to spend eternity in a lake of fire, you really believe that you would do anything to stop that from happening. Like, if you saw someone walking into a burning house, you would physically restrain them, right? I mean, you would stop them no matter what. You wouldn't care what they thought about you. You wouldn't care if they talked bad. No, I just saved your life. So to me, I loved it because it was important and it had to happen. Everyone else didn't have that experience, but that is how I felt about it. How did you feel about it, Mom?
Well, I mean, I think that type of preaching was something to help motivate the people, to get the message out, to let them know that based on their interpretation of the Bible, what was going to happen. It's, I believed it. I still believe that it is going to happen at some point.
But at the time, Kayla, you're muted.
But at the time, it didn't so much strike as weird.
Yeah,
it was definitely like, okay.
Yeah, that was just. I think it was. Yeah, and that's good. I think it was just par for the course.
Yeah,
that's just. Yeah, I think. Yeah, just par for the course, and and TJ and Kayla, you guys have to also realize that. you know, this is extremely hard for me.
Oh yeah.
This is extremely hard for me, and this is something that I've been dealing with for years. I mean, for years, and not really talking about it, or being or feel comfortable enough talking to someone else about it. So this is good that I can share with you kind of how I feel, because sometimes all my thoughts and feelings are like still tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to process that. You know, a lot did happen in the fundamentalist movement. We're no longer a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that again. But I have to say that I still believe in God. I still believe that He saved my soul. I want to be an example for Him, and I'm just trying to find the way He wants me to.
Right.
I think it's so brave of you to come on here and talk about. Yeah, it does. And you, that's amazing. Like I think that that's incredible. And I know that you, I don't know what I'm struggling now to say what I'm trying to say. We've talked a lot about the different hosts like positions now, but I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what I believe now as an adult. Like I usually say agnostic, but like TJ knows, we've had all kinds of weird conversations. Like I am kind of up in the air. So honestly, like I just want to say thank you. It's refreshing. You remind me of Kai too. Kai's always been so brave to be like, I hate this, but I'm still a Christian. And I think that's so beautiful.
And don't you think, I mean, it could have been so beautiful, you know, the movement that we were in and be a part of. It could have been so beautiful to embrace these people where they are and help them to grow and mature as a Christian. Just like Jesus, you know, we always heard that with Jesus accept you where you are. You know, He accepts you for who you are, where you are, you know, and we'll go from there instead of what I feel like I got. I can only speak for me, what I feel like I got.
So I was hoping Kayla would hop in right there, because that's kind of, so this show was started by Kayla. She had the idea a long time ago, and we didn't kick it off until a couple years later. But one of her main Kayla, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah. Oh, I said he did the work. He kicked it off later. He did the work. It was my idea. He's really kind about it.
Well, it was. It would have never happened. I would have never thought of it or whatever. But like her goal was to get people, well, to expose a lot of the nefarious actions that took place with this movement, and secondarily to get people to talk about like a therapeutic way to discuss what happened, because it's an experience that very few people can identify with, like being part of a destructive, pernicious cult like this. And it's something that doesn't make sense when you explain it to other people. Like you start talking about this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, so we would go to church 3 times a week. Wow, 3 times a week? Yeah. And, you know, the women couldn't wear pants. They had to wear culottes. What's a culotte? I mean, there's stuff like that. Like people, they have no idea where we're coming from. So talking about it amongst ourselves, I think, and we all think, is very important, not only to spread the message out there, but, you know, to help people work through this, because there is nothing. I don't think I did anything more difficult in my life than deconstructing from my religious faith. It felt like I lost a limb. It was brutal. It was so hard. And what you said, Mom, is that, you know, we'll get to that a little bit toward the end of this last question, to like what your thoughts are on faith and spirituality. It's my favorite question to ask here, because I enjoy watching like the scattershot results that we get from everyone who you know, left the faith and went somewhere else. And what you said something there, that you're not exactly sure, you know, what you believe and how it works and everything like that. Everybody says this. So I don't want you to feel bad about saying that. Well, everyone but me. But everybody says that. I'm very sure. But everybody says that. And so people are looking around and trying to find, because it is difficult to, like, you know, identify and associate yourself with a certain type of spirituality. I have a few theories on that we'll get to at the end, but I just want to say that we do appreciate how difficult this is, and that's why we mentioned how you were just crushing this, because a lot of people they falter out of the gate. They're like, oh man, and then it's heavy. Those of you who didn't go through this, you guys don't get it, man. You weren't there. You weren't, and so whose turn is it now? I think it's yours, Kayla. I think I asked two questions there. I think we're on number 4. I think I asked both 2 and 3.
Okay. All right. So you asked 2 and 3. All right. So, well, this is the good one then, because this is what I'm really starting to wonder. What were the circumstances to you leaving the fundamental movement? Yeah, because that was, y'all were still there. I don't remember which of us moved away first, but anyway, as long as I've ever known you, you were in it. So this is gonna be.
Well, yeah, I can't remember who left first, your family or my family. But anyways, for me, for my family, the husband being the head of the home.
Amen, brother.
I know.
I'm kidding.
In the fundamentalist movement, the wife got to know her place. Her birthday, to know her place.
Mom, real quick. Do you remember Brother Bontrager? Do you remember him? I really liked him as a kid, but I remember him giving a sermon once.
His whole family was nice.
They were super nice, right? And I remember him giving a sermon. I was probably fit. Mom, do you remember this? His literal words were, "A woman needs to know her place." I never forgot. I was like, whoa.
And not only one time, multiple statements. She knows her place. She knows her place. And then Tony, your dad, he made a joke about it. He said, well, he's Brother Bontrager is going to have a class every Tuesday to teach women how to know.
Wow. But, they did tell one funny joke. How about that?
Nothing like that ever happened with me. No, but getting back to what I was going to say, it was an issue in that my husband had. He had some strong opinions on this about interracial marriage, and so he brought the issue to our pastor, his concerns to the pastor about that. And we didn't know that our pastor felt like he felt about interracial marriages. And, he was totally against it. So we, and that was a huge blow up. And there were many smaller ones along the way. One question my husband had for the pastor is why we don't see any people of color in positions in the church. And, some answer was given that kind of pacified us for a few moments, but it was like, if you have a hint of color in you, that's the way we interpret it. If you have a hint of color in you, you knew that you were only going to go. So you're not going to have a position in the church. You're not going to be able to do major things in the church or have a Black person come in and speak. And if you did have one to come in and speak, it was like they had sold their soul to the fundamentalist movement, and it wasn't a good thing. It just wasn't a good thing. But anyways, the issue with the interracial marriage, we had several conversations with the pastor over that, and he just said he couldn't support it. He mentioned a couple of Bible verses. I think one comes to mind about Moses and his wife.
Moses. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Moses and his wife, and anyway, and he wouldn't budge. Pastor would not budge on it, and so at that time, my husband just said, "Well, we can't be a part of this church. If you feel this way, you need to let the congregation know how you feel about it." And but to our knowledge, that never happened. And we ended up leaving Maranatha, and that was very, very difficult. That was very, very difficult, and fast forward to this day with me, it's hard.
Well,
It question.
before you go, because we want to save that for later, Mom. I'm going to like refill now,
Oh,
but
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so when did you leave did you leave Maranatha? Like, when did that happen? Like, what year was that?
Oh my God.
Because I'm trying to think. You guys were at Maranatha, I'm pretty sure, till I got out of college, and that was in 2005. Or have you moved to Maryland by then? When did you move to Maryland?
I moved to Maryland in 2000. Oh my God, I'm so horrible with dates.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, so it was probably 2008 or 9.
I think I moved to Maryland in 2009.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. So
yeah.
But when did you leave Maranatha? So I was like, after Maranatha, where'd you guys go to church after Maranatha?
We ended up going to Tabernacle.
Oh, you went back to I don't think I knew that.
Wow.
We ended up going to Tabernacle.
That seems like a distinction without a difference in a lot of
Yeah,
we went to another fundamental.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So
did Tabernacle, like, did they have a different like position on it, or was it just like you guys?
I think at this point we were just kind of like, okay, we're gonna let that go.
Mm-hmm.
And Tabernacle, it was a Christian environment, because we still wanted to have the Christian environment. Right. Essence ended up going to school there, playing on the volleyball team, and
I think that was the story that I always tell you, TJ, with me and Essence sitting in our car listening to Sierra. I think that she was playing at shout out Jessica.
Wow.
Anyway, she was playing at Tabernacle, and we were playing at Maranatha. And you saying that just now, I think unlocked the memory. But we were so jazzed to see. I was so happy to see her, and we were hanging out in the parking lot together.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we were there for a couple of years, and it was the same, but I think we just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
We just kind of went with it, and I don't know.
So when you went to Maryland, did you guys attend another independent Baptist church?
No.
Okay, so it was Tabernacle was the last part. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Interesting. Yeah, so I remember all of this, the dust ups with the racial issues and everything. I don't remember how the interracial marriage one came up, but I do remember there were no black deacons and stuff like that. And I remember me and Dad, and I think Mark, we were talking to Pastor Carnahan about it. Mm-hmm. And one thing Dad brought up, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before, Kayla, but so Martin Luther King Day, it has been a roller coaster ride watching watching how conservative Christians have treated Martin Luther King since I've been alive, and when I was a kid, we were at Tabernacle. And in fact, this is why we left Tabernacle. I'm pretty sure one of the reasons that at Tabernacle, which makes it so funny you went back. I didn't know that, but it's just very funny. But so we went to the Christian school at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Lebanon, Missouri. Yeah. And a lot of these Christian churches did not celebrate Martin Luther King Day. There's like, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. And Tabernacle was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I remember you guys said, you are not going to school on Martin Luther King Day. You guys said, no, you're staying home. I remember that. You guys had to stay home. Yeah. And that's I think we went back to Maranatha after that. Yeah. And so I remember Dad asking Pastor Carnahan about the fact that, you bring up a lot of historical figures during your sermons, and you do it all the time. I've never once heard you bring up Martin Luther King. You don't even bring him up during Martin Luther King weekend. It's always on a Monday. We've been here several Sundays before Martin Luther King Day. You've never brought it up. And I was there for this. I remember Pastor Carnahan saying, well, I don't bring up Martin Luther King because he was an apostate. And now, for those of you wondering what he meant by that, if you look at the writings of Martin Luther King did not believe in the virgin birth, and he didn't believe in the deity of Christ. And that was against our doctrinal stances. And so he says, so I don't feel comfortable bringing him up, in a church setting. And I said, well, I've heard you bring up Thomas Jefferson before, and Thomas Jefferson didn't believe any of those things either. In fact, you can find a copy of the Jefferson Bible, and the Jefferson Bible is the New Testament in which all of the supernatural stuff is taken out. It's just like the philosophical words of Jesus. And it's like, and I said, how come you don't have a problem bringing up Thomas Jefferson, but you have this problem with Martin Luther King? And he said, well, Thomas Jefferson wasn't an ordained minister, so it's perfectly fine. I know, I had the same face, Mom. I had the exact same face. I'm like, oh boy. Well, I know, right? It was the weakest answer ever. Well, it was
just
the weakest
like
answer.
Mental gymnastics to justify.
Yeah, right.
Things.
Yeah. And and the movement was already on thin ice with the Martin Luther King thing for me already. I was like, okay, I see what's happening here. I have to correct myself. I said that was the weakest answer ever. Mom, you brought up a weaker one. I didn't know about this, but you asked him about the interracial marriage thing, and he brought up Moses and Zipporah. So for those of you who don't know this, in the book of Exodus, Moses married a Midianite, I believe, and her name was Zipporah. And you know, he had an interracial marriage or whatever. And it's like, well, I guess they fought a couple of times, but like, what was if that was it? I mean, what married couple doesn't fight? Theirs just happened to been recorded, and that was a weird one. I thought he would say something about God has made the nations of the world of one blood and set their bounds. That's what I usually hear when people talk about it. But I mean, even looking at it as if I were still a Christian, the arguments are really bad. They're really bad. It's just,
I agree.
They're just based on bigotry and everything. And I wanted to bring up two things you mentioned too, Mom, about, first off, well, I guess about the same thing. I agree with you 1,000,000% that the Christian movement could be so much more. It could be so much better than, I mean, there are a lot better versions of Christianity than the ones that we went through. But the fact that I have a lot of issues with a lot of stuff about Christianity, even Jesus, honestly, but the core message of loving your neighbor and being kind and gentle, turning the other cheek. You know, there's a lot of good you could on the foundations of the early church and sharing resources, dunking on rich people at every opportunity, you know, bringing people together. It could be great. And to see it devolve into, let's face it, a movement based on, it's not based on love, it's based on hate. It's based on hate of foreigners, hate of fear, hate of taxes, hate of education, hate of gay people. Let's be real, hate of black people. I mean, that's what that is the core of the entire movement. And one way you can tell this is the fact that 3 elections in a row, over 80% of them voted for Donald Trump. Like that has nothing to do with religion at all. It's just about, you know, these cultural bigotry and biases that are involved there. And I wrote down, Jesus can accept you where you are. That's something you didn't see a whole lot of. You saw it sometimes, but suspiciously. And I didn't think about this until I think Kayla or Kai brought it up. They said that a lot of times, like these 27-year-old dudes just show up out of nowhere, like these itinerants and ne'er-do-wells. And I was like, you're right. I remember that happening a lot, where like these like single guys with like questionable backgrounds, like, well, they're part of the church now. They're gonna be working here. I was like, oh, that's kind of.
And then if they lasted a year, they got a daughter. You know, from so.
You get your one of our daughters. It's like a Jacob thing. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah.
Quick question. I just another little weird one before we circle back. But remember how we've always talked about the wives and moms being our teachers? You know, were you a teacher? I can't remember. Did you ever teach? Did you ever get asked to teach, or was that weird then? Or I can't remember. Yeah, I think, didn't you teach Courtney actually? Yeah, Courtney's gonna yell at me. I'm pretty sure she did.
It depends on what grade she started in, because mainly I was in K4, sometimes K5.
Yeah, she was little. It was Katie then, yeah.
K4, and that was an issue too, because you know, well, you can't be a teacher, but you can be a helper. Yeah,
you couldn't be a teacher.
I mean,
they told
like,
you could be
teacher. Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah, so but eventually, you know, I ended up, you know, I had a class for like maybe 2 years by myself, and I loved it. I love being with the kids. I love loving on them and teaching them and showing them the unconditional love, and it was a beautiful thing. But you know, again, you know, I sometimes I feel like I sound negative, but you know, being in that environment, I just felt like something needed to come off of me, to get off of me, if that makes sense.
Mom, how could you not sound negative after what we went through?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying I do all the time. There's a lot of negative stuff to say. I don't know. There's no apology.
And I've never really shared that with you guys, or never, I've so wanted to share with you guys so many times, and it kind of, let you know what my journey is, what my thoughts are, and maybe that's why Mom acts the way she acts sometimes, or I don't know. But this is a good thing, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, what is funny about that? People cough. I don't see what.
I thought you burped. I thought you were burping. I just the way you put your hands up.
No, I was clearing my throat because I didn't want people like if their headphones. I didn't want to.
Yeah, I do that.
So,
sorry.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that, Mom, that you never discussed this. That's what I was referencing for everyone listening early on, in that I don't know my mom's answers to these, because I guess I'll spin a little yarn about my journey out of this condensed version, but. I ended up, actually, I don't know if I ever told you this, Mom, but the reason that I ended up leaving Christianity, it happened during my sophomore year of Bible college, believe it or not. That's how long I kept that thing a secret. Mm-hmm. But I was doing a study into, well, we had like Baptist Heritage Week, essentially Maranatha, the college, no relation to the church, weird, but they had a week where they discussed why Baptists had, if not the absolutely correct interpretation of the Bible, the most accurate, the one guy, why they're defending their position. Yeah. And I couldn't wait for that. I was like, oh, finally, because I love, you guys aren't gonna believe this, but I love to debate. I love to just argue with.
So crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Imagine that. So I know way more than now, like 10 times more than now. I was young, but I got through the week, and their answer came down to, we have the right religion or the right denomination because we believe what the Bible says. And I said, that is the weakest answer I could possibly. That's what everyone would say. Everyone would give you that answer. That wasn't good enough. So I did my own study into the construction of the New Testament canon in specific, of like, how can I demonstrate that the New Testament, at least the 27 books of the New Testament, were the divine, inspired, plenary word of God. And my results were not comforting. What I found out that these books, most of them were written fairly early. Well, some of them, like the Gospels, were written around AD 40 to AD 100, something around there. So shortly after the life of Christ. Mm-hmm. But they weren't written by any of the apostles. There's no one who met Jesus wrote any of the New Testament. And the people who, half of them were forgeries. It turns out like a lot of the works of Paul are straight up forgeries. No one knows who wrote the Gospels. I did know that, actually. I remember Pastor Carnahan mentioning that no one actually knows who wrote the Gospels, and the names assigned to them don't really mean anything. But then I found out that there were competing books to be part of the New Testament, hundreds of them. And the 27 books that we know of the New Testament did come pretty early, maybe 100 years after the life of Jesus. They were the New Testament canon, but there were dozens of other canons of New Testaments that were similar but different. And it wasn't until the Council of Hippo, I think in like AD 3 or 400. So it's AD 300, 300 years after the life of Jesus, that just people with no more apostolic authority than any of us here, like just regular people, said,
they were like, these are the ones that came from God.
Exactly. Oh, that's exactly what happened. And and the thing is, if you talk to pastors and Bible stuff, they will tell you the same thing. Even the ones like who are fundamentalists, that's the truth. And I saw that and I said, I can't possibly defend that. It's just a group of dudes just said, and they were dudes, trust me. Yeah. And they said, like, this is going to be the word of God. Why should I take their word for it? And the answer is, well, the Holy Spirit got it. How do you know that? You're making this up. And so at that moment, somewhere in my sophomore year, I said, I can no longer call myself a Christian. I still believed in God for a long time. I had like a kind of the look at the trees thing, like the world seems too complex and why is there something rather than nothing? So I still believed in God. And it wasn't until like 7 years later that I no longer believed in a God or whatever, but I never told anybody. I told one person, and that was a girl I was dating at the time. We were getting serious and thinking about getting married. It was Jessica, Mom. And I told her,
not a sister.
Not my sister.
Not his sister. That's funny. That's pretty good.
Why is her name Jessica on here? So weird.
I know, that's so funny.
Anyway, So she, because I owed that to her. There was no way that I was like, I'm not going to marry her and spend the next 50 years lying. I can't do that. And so she deserved to know. And so we broke up. And I didn't want to tell anybody else. I didn't tell anyone for years, except for people I was dating. I kept dating Christians. Like my dye was cast. That's who I had. And eventually it got to the point where I think it was mom, where she said, TJ, what is going on? Why do you keep getting in these relationships and they seem great and they fall apart? That was the reason. That was the reason, because they would all say it was fine. And then once it got serious, they're like, well, what are we going to do about the kids? We're going to send them to church and you're not going to go. Yeah. And so then I broke down. I think it was during my deployment is when I actually called home and I told mom and dad about this. And I was terrified to tell mom and dad, not because I was worried. What happens a lot of times in these where we have a lot of folks whose folks disown them, don't talk to them, or it's my parents have been amazing. I've experienced nothing but love and acceptance. I just didn't want my parents to like lose sleep at night thinking their son was going to burn in hell. I didn't want to put them through that. And so that conversation, I think that's like been the only one we've ever had about this. It's just that we don't talk about it, because it's awkward to me and everything. So I've watched
my parents and I don't talk about it either, really. Like I have to be like, my parents and I don't talk about it either. And like if we do talk about it, I have to be like let's talk about this. Let's create this space. And it's like really. That's hard.
Well, that's a perfect intro to the next question, actually. And it's like, how did your friends and family take this information? You just saw the answer for one. That's my first time hearing this, that when mom left the movement or whatever. We'll go to mom, but Kayla, I don't know if I heard how did your folks take it?
Yeah. Well, so for me, I went to Bob Jones University. I don't know if you know this, Denise. That was my first semester of college, and I had Pastor Carnahan had. You remember? Probably I was a little bit wild. I wasn't wild. I was me. Anyway, Pastor Carnahan convinced my parents to send me away, so I went to one of these homes, the IFB homes, for teen kids.
Did you go to the one in that the
Agape?
That was she's like, thanks. That was a boys' home.
Oh,
that was a boys' home.
That's right. You're right. Yeah.
But there was another one really close to us, and it was one of the first ones shut down. Anyway, it was always weird to me that Pastor Carnahan didn't tell my parents to send me there. Instead, he told them to send me halfway across the country to Tennessee. So my parents, they were doing their best. But anyway, I ended up coming out of that. I had a little bit of a weird break in between, and then I went to Bob Jones. And so by the time I left Bob Jones, like I took off to Texas. I didn't give anyone the opportunity to like ask me or anything. Like I just took off and started living in a really loud, unchristian way. Yeah. So, and I had a great time. It was really fun. I loved that next era of my life. But it wasn't until these last like 5-6 years, starting with me trying to like unpack my experience at the home that I've started to talk to my mom about it. I've never really talked to Mark about it. Mark and I don't talk right now. I haven't talked to him in many years. So my mom, I'll give her a little shout out here too, because my mom has always been like, I never felt like for a moment, whenever we did have a conversation, I had to like get her to understand or say sorry. I remember whenever we did talk about it for the first time, which was a while ago, she just immediately was like, I'm sorry, and it was for us, it was really good. But mine had a lot to do with the home and stuff too. So I think but yeah, it's weird and hard for everyone to talk about. I've never met anybody coming out of IFB that's just, well, maybe Preacher Boy. He talks about it really good. I don't know, Eric, but yeah, it's hard for everyone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And what was your question, TJ?
So it was, how did your friends and family handle the news? I went to Kayla first, and then I went to you.
How did my friends?
Yeah, and family handle the news. That's.
Did you have friends after? Yeah, I was about to say you probably had to make new friends.
No, I mean,
You had friends. I know them.
I mean,
I know what you're talking about. I can
like, okay, I used to hang around Carol Broyles. I used to hang around her, and she's staunch, independent, fundamentalist. So it was no understanding there. It was no, I had no one to talk to about that. I had no one to talk to. All that stuff I kept inside and tried to figure it out, because I knew deep down inside that what I was feeling was right. I knew I was right. And I had to come to a point and say, okay, I have to live my life. I have to live my life without the guilt, without the shame, because I know God loves me for who I am, and God knows my heart. And I've accepted that now.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I've accepted that now. And I guess this is as simple as I can make it, you know, being in a movement where it was like no room for growth. Everybody has to grow. Everybody has to express. Everybody has to have an outlet. And the church should help you with that. It should, you know, I still have a hard time putting my thoughts and everything together. But I've come to the realization now that I know what we did was the right thing to do. I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. And, you know, even being in the movement, wearing my hair a certain way or wearing certain type of clothes. Not that I'm going to show up a place half dressed or naked or anything like that, but I wanted to express me. And when I would try to express me, my Blackness, or just who I am, I was looked at like, what are you doing? What? You can't do that. Yeah. And it's like, no, I don't want to be made to feel that way anymore.
Yeah, it's true. There is a lot of stifling of just all creative expression at every opportunity. That there's a very specific mold that they want people to fit in, and it's always been funny to me because the mold they try to fit everyone in would be wildly out of place in ancient Judea, right? This is certainly not what Jesus said you needed to be like. You need to be like a white family in 1948. That's what it is. Like that's exactly like that is the standard. Right?
Like you can't do that. You absolutely can't do that to anybody, any family.
It's down to the composition of the family. Like a single mom family looking at you weird. Okay, you're starting off on the wrong foot. Gay family, forget about it. You're not even allowed here and everything. That's also something that I found interesting, is that one of the doctrines that was preached all the time was that all sin is sin. That, you know, a murder is just as bad as an evil thought. Like it's that each of them will equally send you to hell. I was like, you don't believe that. You don't. Because there are some sins that happen that you just look the other way. But, you know, if you're gay, that's a big deal. Now you're going to lose your church membership. One thing you don't want, they would brag about it too. So the 10 Commandments, this is Kayla's heard this before, so sorry, but the 10 Commandments, whenever they would talk about lessons on 10 Commandments, they would get to remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. And so sometimes Dad would work on Sundays and people would look at him all weird. Like,
I know. He felt so guilty about that.
Oh, yeah.
I know he did. He felt so guilty about it.
Yeah. And they say, well, you know, you shouldn't work on Sunday. I said, folks, Sunday is not the Sabbath. The Bible makes it very clear, like over and over again, that the Sabbath is Saturday. It never changes. Not one time in the New Testament does Jesus, Peter, or Paul say, hey, folks, just so you know, the Sabbath is Sunday now. Never happens. And so but they pretended that Sunday was the Sabbath anyway. And a lot of times, I'm sure you've heard this, but the preacher get up, they say, well, you know, I'll go through the 10 Commandments, and here, the one with not working on the Sabbath, this is a hard one for me. I have a hard time, you know, I'm such a hard worker. I am working all the time. It's really difficult for me to keep this commandment. And I was like, could you imagine them bragging about having difficulty with the other commandments? Could you? Wow, don't commit adultery. This is a tough one, folks. I am really battling not banging the neighbor's wife. It is really hard for me not to do this. I honoring your parents. I hate my folks. I was like, no. Why are you bragging about sinning? It makes me think you're not taking this seriously. And they did this all the time. And so it was just interesting to see the actual levels of which sins they cared about when they said that they didn't. And I wanted to pull up Diamond Dave's comment here. IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptist. It's the organization behind the Duggars and Bates family, correct, Bill Gothard? Yes, you nailed it. Yeah, the Duggars. Mom, did you ever
10
watch
points to Gryffindor.
All the time.
Oh, you did?
I used to watch the show.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You used to watch the show, like, I love the show, like, the Duggars are on?
What? That doesn't seem like your type of show.
So funny to me.
You know, the strange thing is that I would watch it wishing that they would make different decisions, you know, about the kids. No, I did. I really did, thinking that the outcome would change. Hey, what can I say? I did.
Wow. Shush.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
I also want to pull up this comment here, Essence or Jessica laughing. During our Jessica conversation, Essence put that laughing thing. And Diamond Dave also wrote, "Here comes the podcast cat." I like that. That's good. Wolfie the podcast cat. Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. All right. So getting to the last question here about your current beliefs. This one, like I said before, is always fascinating to me because people end up in wildly different directions. Kayla just mentioned hers. Like, honestly, Kayla's yours is a little more complex than the answer you gave, but that's fine. It's you see, it's I'm
just gonna fuck around and find out when I die. Is kind of game plan.
Kayla, I was trying to make this the only episode with no swearing. I was trying to do that, and Kayla, I didn't tell you, but
yeah, like you didn't. You weren't that serious about it if you didn't tell me.
No, I didn't tell you.
I'm surprised I made it. Proud of me for making it this far into that.
That's true, Mom. She mouth like a sailor.
I'm so sorry.
I gotta tell you, the cute little girl you remember from back then, gone, long gone. She is.
I wasn't sweet back then either.
Okay, that's true. All the families in the church gathered together to like Frankensteiner.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Mouth like a sailor.
What?
Yes, you do.
Not in front of my mother, folks. Not in front of my mother. I'm not going to do that.
That was an accident. I did not mean to cuss in front of you, Miss. Oh, it's all good. I would never. I was like in the back of my head trying not to cuss too.
So I was going to ask. So, what are your current thoughts on regarding faith, religion, spirituality? You said that you still believe in God and the Christian God in particular. How do you manifest that faith or practice it, or like what is the foundational core beliefs you have there? Pipe down, Wolfie.
The faith one. Let's see. I had to write this down because. Okay, so the faith one for me is hard. It is.
What do you mean by faith then?
Well, I mean, because I looked it up. I just want to make sure.
That's mom. That's my mom, folks.
I just
looked up the Oxford definition, the Merriam-Webster, to make sure.
It says faith is a belief in something without necessarily adhering to organized systems or ritual. So to me, that sounds like being part of or organized religion.
I thought it said without. I thought it said without organized.
Oh, I'm sorry. Belief in something without necessary. Okay, I'm sorry. I did. You're right. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, well then my answer would change. So that one is easy for me.
Now it's easy.
That one is easy for me because I, at this point, I don't feel like I want to be a part of an organized system. Mm-hmm. And I guess I chalk it up to, it's almost like when you get hurt.
Yeah.
So many times and you just kind of guard yourself or guard your heart. And I don't want to look at a person thinking that, okay, this person is like a God. Even though I know that a preacher, pastor is not God. I understand that. I get that concept, but sometimes I feel that even though it is even though they're not, it still comes across to me that they feel that they are.
I know what you mean by that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that. I feel that way sometimes
I don't like
too.
that. I don't like that feeling. So I'm trying to work that out with God right now and figure out how I'm going to live my life moving forward, feeling the way that I feel about that. Does it answer your question?
Yeah. It's I mean, there's no wrong answer because people have different levels of faith and belief and ways to actualize themselves through their thoughts. I just and there's no way to like question it, right? It is what it is. It's okay, Kayla.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you've taken your faith, which before, and especially, I feel like it was a group thing because of the way that the church was in our lives, and you've made it really personal now. If anything, you're kind of, you have. It sounds like you have your faith, but it's yours. You don't necessarily want other people coming in on that, and that's kind of how I feel too. I didn't mean to try to speak for you there, but I think I get that.
Thank you for that. And what was the other question, TJ?
Oh, I thought so. I usually ask about if you're still a Christian, like your thoughts on the Bible.
I am still a Christian. I am still a Christian. I do believe the Bible. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I still believe the Bible. I am a Christian, but it's just hard for me being a part of an organized church.
Yeah,
that's hard. It's very hard. And my husband, he's different. He has a different approach. So that's hard for us right now.
That's another episode of the Kids from It podcast. Come check it out, folks, whenever I bring my dad on here and see what he has to say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And just I don't know. To be continued.
Yeah, it's tricky. And how can I put this? The thing with faith and belief is I remember I was alluding to this earlier, how it manifests different in everyone and how I think there's a reason for that. And it kind of revolves around the idea that I don't think the term personal God is an accident. I'll put it that way, because it is like your personal expression of how you view the world and the cosmos and spiritualism. And there's no way it's going to be exactly the same as anyone else. There's no chance it's going to be exactly the same. So I don't think that's accidental. And I do, however, I understand, we've talked about this many times, the value, the social utility of a church body. Like, I get why that happens. I understand, because there are, and we're looking at it right now with the atomization of society. People are more insular and they see fewer people than ever before. Even from when I was young, that I don't hang out with people as much as I used to. I spend a lot of time in front of this camera and this microphone. I talk to people all the time, but I see people face to face a lot less than I did 10 years ago, let alone 20. And church is one of those entities that blends people together or bonds them together in their community better than anything I've ever seen. I have a hard time thinking of anything that can come close to competing with the church when it comes to social utility and bonds for people, and down to where are we going to have funerals and weddings, just stuff like that. There's no real go to the courthouse, how great, how festive. It doesn't work that way. So while I'm not part of a church and don't plan to be, I do see why people desire it. I absolutely see why. And religion helps bring people together who have nothing else in common. That it's, you may not have anything in common with your next door neighbor, but you worship the same God, follow the same religion. Now there's a connection there. So I get why that happens. I just wish there was a way to do it outside of that because it's not necessary, in my opinion. Because, like you said, Mom, your belief in God isn't necessitated on walking into a building, right? It doesn't matter, right? It's between you and God. But that's why I think it's more like the church body. Once again, it's not like I'm defending church. I'm not. But it's I see why people desire that because it's not something I've been able to replicate anywhere else.
And that's great. That's a great point. I really, because we need that. We are beings that need
community.
We need that community. We really do.
I can definitely say, I kept thinking of this as we were in the first few weeks after Helene out here, that, our community really came together, but it would have been like so much more scary if you like never met anybody in your community, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But, somebody maybe will comment that knows, but we have a lot of places out here in the actual WNC area that like I don't know what they're called. So if I get this wrong, people don't come for me, but they're churches, but they have nothing to do with religion. It's just people, they get together in a church building, like same thing, not every week, Sunday, 10 a.m., whatever. And they're just there for that community and like whatever. And they talk about, I don't know what they talk about. I've never been to one, but it's not a cool concept. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like it.
I do too. Like in theory, I do. I think that because that's what I'm arguing for is necessary, but I don't know how that works. Those are because like you said, what do they talk about? Like, what do you do? What do you there? It reminds me of the French Revolution, believe it or not, where they abolished religion because the Catholic Church was so pernicious and evil and contemptuous, like it still is. But Robespierre realized that the people kind of needed this. The social glue was too important. So he created his own religion. It was called the Cult of the Supreme Being, which is very funny. He called it a cult. I think that's hilarious, but it fell apart. It fell because it wasn't anything that actually connected people other than community. The closest thing I've come to that I can see as a possible replacement for it, it's about community. It's a economic system. It's called communism. And I think that it's the only one that I can. That was a joke. No one laughed. But
I know.
Nobody laughed. Look, that joke was better than you guys reacted. Okay, I know.
Your mom and I did the same thing. We went.
Maybe my lead up was too long. If the audience doesn't laugh at your joke, it's your fault. That's all. I'll take that. That's on me. I delivered it incorrectly or whatever. But yeah, so we find a lot of this where folks will have a deep core belief of faith that is hard to manifest and probably impossible to, but don't feel the desire to have like an ecclesiastical set of rules and stuff that goes with it. I think that's actually what the Catholics and the Presbyterians and everything, having like rules and structure and like I see why, because it doesn't make sense theologically. Like, why do I need a super pastor over my pastor? That's weird. Like, I don't even need him. I can talk to God anytime I want. But it does kind of keep everyone on the same page, because independent fundamental Baptists, like, there's just rogue churches doing whatever they want. And it's a lot harder to control that way. And you end up with folks like us, that's like, oh no, we're done with this,
Yeah.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I just want to say again, like, thank you so much for doing this with us, Sis Denise. Like, we have so many times speculated, tried to guess at how any of our parents were feeling and just what that was like, and to come and share that you're at a crossroads too with is just wow. I've looked up to you since I was a little girl, and now especially like I think you're great. I'm over here, I think it's incredible. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Kayla. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you and TJ working together on this project, because this is something that I can see continuing for a while now, and inviting other people in to share their thoughts and feelings, and just having that discussion, just being open and transparent about what we went through, and not to just try to throw stones at, people, the pastors and all the upper management, if you will, but just try to figure out what is our next step. How do we move past that? How do we get better from this? How do we make it better from this? Right?
Well, Mom, you may not want to throw stones, but I will throw them all day long. I can't stop. My shoulder is sore. I've been throwing stones so long.
Somebody's got to throw the stones, though. It's an important part of the improvement process, you know? So,
yeah.
I'm always trying. We're always trying to, like, this podcast, it came together so fast. We've just been doing it every week. All of us, Kai and Carla haven't been on in a while, but it's always just, we get on and it's usually our first times talking every week or every couple of weeks. So the pod is still ever changing. And I think falling into what it might be. Sometimes we accidentally, end up talking super political too, which we try to technically avoid on this side. Maybe not. Yeah. Okay. And I don't know. We needed you here tonight because when you were talking now and earlier about TJ, brought up again, the original hope of the podcast was to create that safe space and to just like have some conversations. And I think we needed a little reminder of that, and you were perfect. So now it's gonna keep growing.
Yeah, Kayla's right. I had actually forgotten this because when I texted saying that, hey, my mom was, she's like, oh, we finally got a parent on. I did forget that we did want to talk to parents and family members. I asked Mom. Actually, you know what, Kayla? My mom agreed to this like 2 months ago, and I forgot about it.
Oh my gosh.
I thought she said. I thought she said I'd get back to you. No, she said yes, let's go. And then over Christmas, she's like, oh yeah, you never brought me on. So my fault. I wanted to put in Essence wrote or I'm jumping out. She's at a play date. There's Universalist type churches. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yes. She would know. She would know. She's so smart.
Yeah. Unitarians and stuff. They're cowards. I just like take a position. Listen, like I don't know, like why I don't know. That's if you're gonna be in a religion, have some rules, right? I don't know. Why bother at that point? But anyway, so Diamond Dave said every church is a rogue church in America. It's very funny. Essence said, yes, thank you for sharing. Gives me courage to share. Essence will also be on this podcast soon.
Yes.
She's Mom, she was not as courageous as you. Your daughter may not see Valhalla. She said, oh, I'll have to think about it. I don't know. We'll see. But now apparently, Essence said, hey. She also says throw the stones, and of course you say that, so that's pretty good. That's good stuff. So yeah, Mom,
Essence, I'm so excited. I've been wanting Essence on the pod since day one.
Hey, like honestly, since we were talking about family, like
honestly, I don't know why I invited you to make it with me. I should have just hit Essence up and been like, "Do you want to do this?"
Right. She said that, oh, I really want to talk Essence on here. Tell her that she introduced me to Sierra. That's one of the first things Kayla said when I brought up Essence or whatever. So
I have to tell her this story on the podcast because I've literally told everyone every other time we're recording, anytime Essence comes up, because I just that memory was maybe she'll remember more of what we talked about because it was after y'all's change too, but we went into some deep stuff in the car that night. So it wasn't just Sierra, but
I've got to hear this. I've got to hear senior year of high school Essence's deep thoughts. I cannot wait. And Diamond Dave said, cool lives, just sub. Best decision you've ever made, my friend. We appreciate it. So, all right. Any closing thoughts, Mom? Anything you want to leave the good folks watching the live?
Wow. I would just say, let's continue to have this dialogue. And if you are in a movement like the Independent Fundamental Baptist movement, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to stand up and be heard, because that's the only way we can make change.
Hard agree. Thanks so much, Mom. We appreciate it. Excellent. All right. We'll catch you guys later. Thanks for joining.
All right. Thank you.